Did you know there are people who actually experience job satisfaction? They don't anticipate Fridays and they don't dread Mondays. They're not constantly tuning up their resumes and scouring the internet to find somewhere, anywhere else better to go. For these people, work is a joy because they're doing what they love and getting paid for it. But that's not all they've got going for them. In today's episode, I'm going to show you just what that extra thing is so that you can get the same satisfaction of these lucky buggers. Hey, Creating Maven. I'm Joy Spencer, your Reframe specialist, with one important message. Your real work, it's not your job or your career. Your real work is what you create. And what you create is what sets you apart and makes you incomparable. It's your legacy. I'm here to show you a whole new way of working so you can create with your gifts, make a unique contribution, and finally get paid to be yourself. This is Reframe to Create. Have you ever worked with someone who just loved what they did and seemed over the moon happy about it all the time? They were insufferable, weren't they? Especially if you didn't feel the same way. One of my former bosses, Jeff, triggered me in this way. I could not figure him out or why he was so happy and giddy about the work we were doing all the time. I mean, fine, it was important work. We were having an impact and we were really changing lives, but was it really that good? Unlike him, I just wasn't waking up every morning excited and inspired to go to work. I just wanted to knock down my to-do list to a level that didn't feel overwhelming. You know what it's like. You're working hard, but it seems to be like planting seeds in bad soil. No matter how much you rise to the top of one mountain of accomplishment, there's an inevitable crash, and you have to work to climb back up again. How can you be working this hard and still feel so disconnected and disengaged? How is this possible? This type of thing can be very discouraging and isolating, but I want you to know you're not alone. According to the latest Gallup report, 51% of employees are disengaged in the workplace, while 13% are actively disengaged. And actively disengaged means that they're feeling miserable about work and they're spreading negativity to all their colleagues. Maybe that's you. And these numbers are abysmal, but they're still the best since Gallup started measuring them in 2000. That is just atrocious. This is what is considered normal, guys, and what people accept as the way of work and adulting. Maybe this is your norm. Maybe this is your status quo, even though you want better. But there is better. There are people like Jeff and so many others out there in this world who have what you're looking for. So how can we get you in on it? One of the ways you might think you need to do this is by leaving your current job. I know that's what I did. I left my job with Jeff and I decided I was going to go out on an adventure to find somewhere else where I could be just as happy as he was. I thought he had found the right job for himself, and that's why he was so happy. He had this dream job, and I needed to go out and find mine. I thought where I was the problem. I thought the job was the problem, but I was wrong. I'm going to say something that might hurt your feelings a little bit, but I want you to trust me on this because I'll explain what it means. Okay, you ready? It's not them. It's you. It's not your job or even the people on your job that are making you feel stuck, unexpressed, and unfulfilled. It's you. That's why this feeling keeps following you from place to place and job to job. That's why changing venues is not going to make any difference for you, at least not in the long run. Because there's a mindset and approach that you're taking to work that follows you and keeps bringing you back to this same experience. Now, hold up. Before you get all the way off the deep end about this, I need to make a very, very important caveat here. I repeat, I am not talking about toxic and abusive environments. I'm not talking about places where you're being disrespected, harassed, neglected, unappreciated, manipulated, and otherwise treated like garbage. I am not talking about those environments. There is only one response that is appropriate for those types of places. Run, Forrest, run. I mean, I hope if we were in a room where a basket fell over and a whole bunch of poisonous snakes spilled out, you would have the good sense to hightail it out of there and run. Hopefully, you wouldn't need someone to come hold your hand and convince you that you needed to leave. Hopefully, nobody would be able to convince you with patronizing words that you needed to stay in there to see what happens. I'm assuming you have enough sense to run if you know you are in a toxic work environment right now. I hope I don't have to tell you that. But just in case, run. It is the height of irresponsibility on your part to stay in a place that is destroying your mind, body, soul, and spirit. Do not do it. Now, those crazy places aside, what I am talking about are spaces where you're dealing with run-of-the-mill office drama and annoyances that you're going to run into anywhere. The work is generally good or even amazing at times, but you can't seem to escape either cycles or permanent feelings of being stuck, unexpressed, and unfulfilled. So now you're wondering, Joy, if they're not the problem, how am I the problem? Well, it's because you're not building sandcastles. What? Remember when you were a kid and you went to the beach? You loved your sandcastle. You were totally engrossed in building it. You got the sand, the water, you dug some deep holes. If anyone else tried to kick it over, you defended it fiercely like it was your very own child. And for some reason, you cared deeply and maybe even cried once it was washed away. You were so invested in what you were creating. You lost time while you were doing it. You were lost in your imagination, imagining it was your castle and you were defending your fort, or maybe it was like this grand home that you were going to build one day. And even though it was sand, you felt like for a moment it was yours. You owned it. Okay, maybe it wasn't the beach for you when you were younger. Maybe it was building something with Legos, or maybe just telling stories and playing pretend with your friends and getting really engrossed. Whatever it was, you felt this incredible feeling of satisfaction. That's the power of creating. It's the way you can turn any place that you're in into a fulfilling experience. Now, what you can create in work is not exactly like a sandcastle. It has the potential to last even longer and be something you can take with you to your next job and even beyond. That is, if you're creating one of two specific types of things that I'll encourage you to create in just a second. But whatever you create has the power to get you excited and unstuck and to keep you engaged and feeling expressed and fulfilled right where you are for however long you choose to be there. Say, for example, you're a teacher. The normal thing to do would be for you to make your lesson plans and deliver them in an engaging way, grade papers, and work to knock some education into your students. And if you did this and were amazing at it, you would be considered a phenomenal and very productive teacher. But it might not stop you from feeling dissatisfied and unexpressed and disengaged at times. But what if you created something, say an annual or even one-time experience for your students? Something that didn't exist before and that had your special creative stamp on it. Maybe one day you turn your entire classroom into an immersive experience to teach your students about what it was like to live in your country 100 years ago. This would stand out for them and for you. It would call on you to use your creative juices and all your gifts and your talents. And if you only did it one time, or if it became an annual thing that was carried on after you left, you would still have something real and tangible you had created that was your own. Even if you had to leave it behind, it would always be your own. This would be a completely different way to experience your work. One where you were intentionally investing your creating power to bring something new to life. When you realize you have the power and the responsibility to create, and that this is the key to feeling fulfilled, then you'll snap out of the common and misguided mindset that believes there is something that inherently exists within a particular job that can offer you satisfaction. There isn't. It's not about what's in it that you can take out in order to feel worthy and fulfilled. It's about what you put in it that's of your own essence by what you create. That's what makes something worthwhile and satisfying. That's what keeps you engaged. That's why I'm always telling you to not get stuck in the mindless productivity trap that has you on the go, go, go and following a script without stopping to think deeper about what you're doing, about what you're creating or not. This is what made Jeff so happy and engaged. He had two specific things going for him. This is the extra I mentioned earlier that's the secret to people like him having satisfaction in their jobs. 1, he intentionally created. And 2, he owned what he created. The organization was Jeff's brainchild. He created it and established the mission and scope. He was the creative mind behind the work and came up with his own ideas and approaches that he put out into the world. Even on the toughest working days, he was overflowing with enthusiasm for what he did. And if you think about it, you probably have people in your own life and work who are the same. They're always creating things and experiences, and you can see the joy that lights up on their faces because of it. You may be in the same job as they are. Hey, you may even have the same title that they do, but it's clear that they're having a completely different experience than you. They're creating things and owning them, and it's giving them a deep sense of satisfaction. To be satisfied, you have to be engaged. To be engaged, you have to own something of your own. And to do that, you've got to create something with your gifts. This is why the most important question you need to ask is not where can I go to find my dream job, but how can I create here where I am? And if you are going to leave your current job and find somewhere new, then the most important thing you need to know about that environment you're going to is not simply what they want you to do or if the job description they have matches your fantasy idea of your dream job, but rather you need to ask whether you'll have the freedom, autonomy, space, and resources to create once you're there. Because creating is what you need to be able to do always, no matter where you are. And if you have that, it doesn't need to be your dream job. You'll have the room and ability to create it. I'm glad I left my job with Jeff. I had to learn this important lesson. However, looking back now, I see that there was room right where I was to create more and build out more spaces of satisfaction. In fact, it was the little pockets of creating power and space that I did have while there that gave me glimpses of what was possible. I just didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't know creating more was the key, so I didn't know how to double down and expand. So I had to leave to go on my journey to learn the lesson that I'm sharing with you today, so that you don't have to leave under the misguided notion that you can find a dream job that will help you finally feel engaged. You won't. You have to create it. Now, you can still leave if you want to, but let it be armed with the truth of the reality of what it is that I'm sharing. There is nowhere you can go, no other job, no venture into entrepreneurship, nor your retirement that will make you immune from feeling unexpressed and dissatisfied if you don't learn to practice continuous creation. So, what now? I said I was going to help you get in on the thing that makes those people who experience satisfaction in work get to that point. By now, you know it's the fact that they intentionally create and own things while on the job, not just outside and off to the side of it. So now it's time for us to get the same for you. It's time for you to step it up. In episode 13, I talked about the importance of having a signature creation and 4 different types of creations you can make to set yourself apart and get paid to be yourself. Let's revisit that idea because 2 out of the 4 are really applicable to someone like you working in a 9-to-5. The 4 creations are a product, a service, an experience, or a project. First, let me talk about the 2 I do not recommend that you focus on while working in a 9-to-5. These 2 are a product or a service. It's not that you shouldn't create these at all. I just think you should reserve them for your own side hustle or private consultancy. That's because a service, or especially a product, is hard to completely own the intellectual property if you make it within the confines of your job. You'll have to give up some of the intellectual property or share it with the company. There might be some issues about Where and when did you make it, and who had the resources and that type of stuff. So I think it's best to just avoid doing that within the context of your job and focus on keeping that for yourself outside of it. But a project or an experience, that's something that I think it makes sense to create internally. These two are things that you can, in good conscience, still take with you. You can take them with you in the sense that if someone asks you the question that I asked you about in episode 13, what did you create in the last place that you were? You can in good conscience say, I created this project, I created that project, I created this experience or that experience. And even if it was just a one-time thing or it's being carried on without you, there was a before and after period to it and it had your name and stamp on it. And you can feel comfortable still owning it in a way. So that's the other thing. This whole process of being engaged and creating with your own gifts on the job, you have to be willing to own it. You have to be willing to take the lead. You have to be willing to put your name on something. It doesn't have to be everything. This is so that when you're in that next interview, you can confidently say, I created this, with a level of clarity and power in your voice. The other benefit is that creating projects and experiences is something that's so tangible. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And because it has an end, you don't have to be indefinitely wedded to it. It's something you can move on from if you get tired of it or want to create something new and different. But once you've created it, it's yours and it's part of your legacy. So how can you do this? What's the process of you going about creating and owning something of your own with your gifts on your job? There are a couple of steps. First, you've got to get a clue and ask, what have I created before? That's like looking in the rearview mirror and getting some clues from where you've been and the things that you've created. In episode 4, I take my guest Nico through a resume excavation that's designed to do exactly this. So check out that episode. It's to help you think, okay, I don't know where to start, but there must be some things that I've created before. And that can help you restart and reignite your passion about things that you might want to create again in the future. And number 2, you want to ask, what's something I want to create now that I know will add value? You want to think about the context of where you're in. What are some of the challenges of the work that you're in? And that you know that if you created something, it would add value to that space. And then 3, who can be the sponsor or support for this? I can't tell you how important it is to have a positive environment where you can have the space and autonomy to create. But even if you don't think you have one, just asking the question, who can be my sponsor and support, can help you to begin to explore and look for clues where you might not have looked before. You may just assume that there's no room or space for you to create. But by asking maybe who might be someone who could sponsor and support this, you begin to open up your mind to the possibility that, hey, there might be more room here than I thought at first. And then 4, ask yourself, what's easy for me to create? You know, you would have had the clue in step 1 to look at what you've created before. You have thought about in step 2, you know, maybe what are some things that I want to create now? But I want you to think also for step 4, what might be easy for me to create? And why I want you to look at what's easy is because you want to prototype very quickly. You want to get to an experiment in the organization, and you don't want it to be too heavy of a lift because I don't want you to get discouraged. I want you to just try something. Go small, keep it small if you need to, but just try your hand at creating a small project or a small experience that you can deliver. And that's how you can begin to create and own your gifts on the job. First, look back. Number 1, look back. What have I created before? Explore that. 2, begin to explore and examine and imagine what's something that you want to create now that you feel would add value where you are. And 3, look for that sponsor and that support so that you can begin to create a positive environment around you that can help you. And 4, ask yourself what's easy for me to create so that you have an easy stepping stone to begin to prototype and explore. And as I mentioned before, the thing to keep in mind with all these 4 steps is that you're doing this to create something and own it. If you have not up until this point stepped forward and taken the initiative on owning some projects, this is the time to do it. Now, this doesn't mean that you're going to be someone who is trying to own and run everything on the job. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there needs to be at least one thing, at least during the tenure of your time there, that you can take with you so that you can confidently always say, I created this. This is the mindset in a sea of all the projects that you have that have been initiated by others, that are being led by others, and that you're being asked to lend your skills to. Let there be one that is your creation that you initiate and own. Ideas don't give you confidence. Plans don't give you confidence. Having something tangible that you created gives you confidence. Why is this so important? Well, even if you're not going anywhere, even if you're not leaving your job, creating and owning something with your gifts is a great way to move from being the jack of all trades to having a brand, to having a niche area in your work. And the benefit is that it also helps to streamline and focus the types of work that gets assigned to you and that you're thought of for. It helps to attract the work that you want, and it helps you to put something out into the world that speaks for you when you're not in the room. It helps people to have a clear understanding and sense of the work that you do and the contribution that you make. And as you're maturing in work, you really want to move away from the early days of doing and being everything to everyone to having a niche and having an expertise that sets you apart. Because that's what's going to help you make a contribution that helps you to leave a legacy that's clear and that you're proud of. I've said this to you before, and I'll say it over and over again. Your work is not your job or your career. It's what you create. And this is what you need to be focused on wherever you are. What is it that I can create? Because nobody has ever written a job description with the full uniqueness of who you are in mind, because they can't. It's your responsibility to figure it out and bring it to the forefront. And there's no better way to do this than by creating and owning what you create. So I've shared a lot with you today, and I hope you get it now, that work dissatisfaction is common, but it's not inevitable. There are people out here who are experiencing satisfaction. And the thing that they're doing is that they create and they own what they create. And you should too. So if you're in a 9-to-5, this is the time. There is no better time than to sit down and think about creating a project or an experience that's going to help bring your gifts together and set you apart. And you can do this by starting to look back at what you've created before to get some clues and think about what is it that you want to create now that might add value to where you are. You want to make sure that you're doing this in a supportive environment. So looking for a sponsor. But even if you don't think off the top of your head that you're in a supportive environment, I don't want you to assume that that's what is. Explore, start to ask questions and see if there is a way and an opportunity for you to create and own what you create. And then get to creating it. Experiment, try something small, explore. So, what's next? Maybe you're excited about the possibilities, but still don't know where to start. Don't worry, I've got you covered. I do a resume excavation for clients to help them figure out exactly what to create. In this high impact session, I help you find treasures you haven't been able to see up until this point. Treasures about your unique contribution and what you were born to create. By the end of the session, you'll know exactly what you've created in the past that has been of high value, and you'll have a clear sense of what you need to create next. Run, don't walk to reframetocreate.com/excavate. That's EXCAVATE. And get on my calendar so we can get you your clarity and unleash your creating power. The world needs the beautiful things and experiences you will create and offer. And I can't wait to help you do this. See you soon, Creating Maven. Until then, remember to always ask yourself, what will I create?